You know, our world is very interesting. And some of you may be laughing, and go, yeah, it's interesting, all right. But it is. And it's especially interesting if you can connect your energies to different dimensions and see how they interplay with the physical realm. And in my classes, I often teach information that can be found in the aura, and that's sort of a generalization of the energy field around us. And I start them off with looking at colors of the aura and then maybe totems. And then we move into mythical creatures, or what I call the mythicals, and then our guides and on into spirits as we move toward mediumship and our awareness and ability to provide evidence. And it's always interesting to me when we get to the totem, I mean to the mythicals, because we kind of think of mythical creatures as being just that, like something, just a fantasy, something that never existed. But what's fascinating is that often, if I have a group of students together looking at the same individual, they will all see a particular mythical creature or more, often in the same position in the person's energy field. And they might be a minotaur, they might be a unicorn, or they might just be a mermaid. And today I have a guest on the show, and she is a mermaid. And she's going to be talking about her memories of Atlantis. Welcome, Ameera Beth.
Aloha, Tracy.
Aloha. You hail from Kauai, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Kapa'a, Kauai.
Well, I want to share with our listeners something about you. So let me do a little spiel and let them get a background for you, if that's okay.
Super.
Okay, and if you want to check out, a lot of you like to look up who our guest is during the show. If you want to do that, you can find her at ameerabeth.com. That's Ameera, Ameera, Beth, Beth.com, or merjourneys.com. And Ameera is an intuitive. She is an incarnated mer person and an Atlantean high priestess. Ameera's spiritual lineage is of Atlantis, Lemuria, and the sacred feminine. She considers herself to be an ambassador for the remembrance of the wisdom and philosophy of the kingdom of Atlantis and the law of one. Her specialty is in helping others to embody the art of detachment. And I really like, I don't know if you listeners can hear thunder in the background. We've got a very exciting electrical phenomenon going on here in Virginia, so please forgive that. I love that she calls it the art of detachment, because that's in our spiritual evolution a really important ability to have, especially while we're here in the physical. And so she helps others embody that art of detachment and reclaim their sacred space. Helps them to raise their vibrations and to learn how to create healthy boundaries and discover their soul purpose. She's very skilled in teaching energetic sovereignty, and she helps her clients cultivate their own unique connection to spirit. She is an advanced level past life regressionist, mentor, ordained minister, and retreat leader. And she lives on Kauai High. Or is that Kauai, Hawaii? That's Kauai, Hawaii.
Hawaii, Hawaii.
Kauai,
Yep.
Hawaii. I like that. And hosts groups, couples, and individual healing retreats. And she does her personal sessions like I do for people at a distance by Skype. And you can go and visit her directly on the island. So again, Ameera, thank you so much for joining us today. I know our audience has a great deal of curiosity about you. So,
Thank you for that lovely introduction. And when I hear like my own bio or my own words reflected back to me, I think, wow, that's a lot.
It is a lot, and it's very interesting, but it's, once you open up to things beyond, there's infinite possibilities, and we're so multifaceted as beings as well.
Mm-hmm.
What would you,
Mm-hmm.
I know the first question probably anyone asks is, well, what's a mer healer? So, and what's an incarnated mer being? So let's get that out of the way here and let's learn something. Tell me about
Okay,
that.
sounds good. So mer is obviously water. And so because I am an incarnated mer being, and I'll get into in just a few minutes, if you like, about
Sure.
how that remembrance all came about. My primary element is water. I am more of an element, I feel, than a human being. Water is the element that I embody, and the conduit through which people come through me for healing and for growth, because I'm able to transmit. Remember, water holds memory,
Yes.
and water represents emotions, and water is about the ebbs and flows of life, and diving deep or rolling over on your back and floating in
Uh-huh.
surrender. So water is all of that, all of that definition of how we move through life. And so when people come through me, through my connection to the mer people, which of course are very, very ancient, and all about water and the power of the transformative power of water, I am able to transmit my memories of being a water being and holding really the memory of all time and space and the universe through the water element.
Oh,
And I know
very
that's kind of a
cool.
big statement, and you're probably like, okay, what does that mean? So water is not, I believe water is not of this planet. I believe water came from somewhere else when the planet was originally formed, from somewhere in outer space.
Mhm.
It was gifted to us. So I am from the star system Orion. My planet, my home planet, is Mintaka, which is the middle star in Orion's belt, and that is a water planet.
Oh, interesting.
So
And
it's my belief
Orion's,
that,
I was just going to say Orion is in the belt, isn't it, of the Archer? Is that right? That rules
yes,
Sagittarius. Is that correct?
yes.
Ah, I'm a Sag. Cool.
Yeah, so the concept of Orion itself didn't really resonate with me when I started learning and realizing I was from there. But when I read about Mintaka, which is the blue planet, the water planet,
Mm.
of course I realized that was my original home. So it's my belief that water came from Orion's belt, from the Mintakans to Earth when Earth was formed, and along with it came the Mer people.
Oh, beautiful.
So the mer people really have always been in other dimensions, and that we still exist in another dimension. You remember, if you think about Atlantis and the time of Atlantis, when the mer people are probably most well known for that time frame. Atlantis was a fifth dimensional community in a third dimensional existence,
I was going to
and we'll
ask
talk a
you
little bit
about
more
that.
about
Yeah,
that
yeah,
too.
yes, absolutely.
So the
So,
mer people came to support, I call it Merlantis, under the sea.
uh-huh.
The mer people from Merlantis came to support Atlantis and the Atlanteans and the humans who came to incarnate and populate the experiments that became Atlantis.
Oh, very interesting. Yeah,
Yes, it is.
the reason I'm sounding like that is that I work with the goddess Sedna as just one of the
Uh-huh.
guides or mentors of my energy. It's not a personal guide because, of course, like all ascended masters and gods and goddesses, they work with everybody or lots of people. But
Right.
and Sedna is the Inuit goddess, the one that
Yes.
allegedly the for our listeners, the one that seals and whales and creatures of this.
Yeah, her fingers. They came from her fingers that were severed.
Yes, yes, yes. Oh, very cool. Okay. So incarnated mer being specifically, how would you describe that?
Mer being, mer person, mermaid. Being is just another way to express my mer soul and my mer origins.
Mm-hmm.
So my remembrance of being a mermaid or being an incarnated mer being is really pretty interesting. I didn't know most of my life. I had a connection, of course, to the water, like most people feel. But my true soul essence was really veiled from me by spirit for a very long time. And I had my spiritual awakening kind of late in life. I was in my late 30s when the 2x4 came, like some of us get, that really like, woke me up to God and life and multidimensionality and all these things about, we're so much bigger than we know. So at one point early in my awakening, I was meditating and I felt this energy start to move through my hands and arms, through my body, and my arms began to rise up and flow in these water-like, flowy gestures around my body.
Ooh.
These very graceful mudras and hand movements that was not something I was intentionally doing. It was like a force that was coming from inside of me, moving my body. And as I yielded more and more to it, I discovered it was throughout my entire body, and my body would just writhe and flow and move completely separately from my intention. If I just surrendered to it, the energy would just, and I didn't know what it was. It felt very beautiful and peaceful. And I always felt really high vibration when it was happening. And when I discovered that it wasn't just in meditation, that it was something that I was doing or able to tap into all the time, of course, I wanted to know what the heck this was. And back then, we all know about mermaids, but it had never really even occurred to me consciously that I could be one, or that was even possible. So, and I noticed when I worked on my then husband, when I put my hands near him, my hands would automatically move in these spiral motions around his chakras and up and down his body, and it was clear that I was moving energy or transmitting energy or doing something energetic.
Yeah, I was just,
and it was just happening. Yeah, so I went to a past life regressionist. I was reading Dr. Brian Weiss and discovering a lot about past life regression therapy. And I really felt like it was connected somehow to another life or past life, which is of course a multidimensional simultaneous life. And I hadn't really put that together at that time, that all time is happening at once. And what's moving through me, or what I thought might be a past life, is actually a simultaneous life. So I went to this past life regressionist. Her name was Julia Ingram, who later became my mentor and teacher for past life regression therapy. And I laid down on her couch, went into the hypnosis, and was stunned to be writhing up and down on her couch like I was jumping through waves.
Oh, wow.
Exclaiming, "I'm a mermaid. I'm a mermaid," like literally having the somatic feeling in my body and moving up and down on her couch. And I was absolutely stunned. But at the same time, I was like, oh my God, I'm a mermaid, right?
Yeah, that connection. Yes, yes.
It was just really mind-blowing, and it was so real. I was so completely that personality or that being, like fully enmeshed with her, that there was no way that I could deny. And the emotion, I don't know how much experience you've had in past life regression therapy, but the emotion can be really, really intense. Can be very strong.
Yeah, I don't do past life regression, but I go there in trance. So I completely understand.
So this is just helping people trance who maybe need someone to hold space to be able to do that for themselves. So I'm having this experience of swimming down, 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 and I see this underwater city covered by a big bubble. And sometimes when these things happen, the first thing we want to think is, oh, I'm making this up. I've seen this in a cartoon, or I've seen this in a movie, because it was very kind of archetypal of how you might see an underwater city, you know, with the big beautiful temples and kind of the ruins and this covering over the top, and the covering over the top, the bubble was kind of confusing to me, but I knew I could swim in and swim through it. Anyway, long story short, I went through this process of rediscovering and remembering my mer essence, and everything just kind of took off, and my life was never the same after that moment.
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah. So in that connection or reconnection with your identity from another physical manifestation, sometimes with past life memories, we have actual memories, like we kind of say past life memory like it's just a thing, but it's literally a memory, and it is differentiated from a fantasy or a dream or an imagination, because you can just tell the difference. I don't know how to, maybe in the part of your being that it registers, the resonance of it, the identification with it, maybe, rather than
Well, you
sort of
know, the
something
biggest act
outside
of
of
proof,
you. Yeah,
the biggest act of proof I had was what my body was doing involuntarily.
right, right.
You know, that was my, you know, and of course you think, okay, well, if I'm going to believe this and own this, who's going to believe me if I tell people this, right? How do I tell anybody this? They're going to think I'm insane.
Yeah,
So it was really a process of, stepping into my authentic self, learning what that meant, working with spirit, and starting to share with people a little bit at a time about this is my true identity, and this is why I'm remembering it. And Ameera is actually my mer name. I took her name sometime after that remembrance. She is me in this other dimension. And so
yes.
when we talk about, you know, who we are as multidimensional beings, you know, we have this oversoul that is just enormous and holds tons and tons of light. And we are not only showing up from our higher self or from our oversoul as you as Tracey, or me as Ameera. We are showing up in many other realities, universes, dimensions, time and space as a
Oh,
different
yes.
version of ourself, all happening at the same time. So I
Yes,
started to
yes.
weave this together, that Ameera is me. She is my mer aspect. And actually, we did a merger together. She came forward, and her essence, instead of being separate from my stream of light or ray of oversoul, has actually merged in part with me in this reality. And at that point, I took her name and then kept my birth name. I grew up as Elizabeth, kept Beth to honor my birth name. And my legal name is Ameera Beth.
Oh, that's lovely.
That's what I
Yeah.
go by, because it
Yes.
was my desire to just like embody and embrace both my human form and also this mer energy that was coming through me as the wisdom and the grace and the knowledge of the mer people and the philosophy of Atlantis.
Yeah, it suits you perfectly to a
Thank
T.
you.
Absolutely, energetically and everything.
Yeah.
You know, you see now a lot of people, mermaid jewelry and people swimming and birthday parties at Mertails. And
Mhm.
I had a student that was training as a mermaid also. And, getting the tail and the outfit was like a really big deal. And,
Yeah.
and before the show, you were talking about, how that kind of iconic language of our culture is indicative of something larger. Tell us how that fits together, and why are people fascinated by mermaids and things now?
You know, it's really interesting. All these little girls, you know, they want to be mermaids, little and big girls. And, you know, my granddaughter and my niece, who are both, you know, youngish, just came into their bodies already talking about and identifying with the archetype or the embodiment of a mermaid. And mermaids represent, you know, in our culture, they represent beauty and grace. And you know, the archetypal mermaid of the beautiful mermaid, you know,
Right.
sitting on a rock, sunning herself, and we actually look much different than the mermaids you see in books and movies. We don't look anything like that. But you know, the idea of being able to put on a tail, and I have a swimming tail, and transform into this beautiful creature that can swim with the dolphins, like that's very powerful medicine for the feminine soul, and even for the masculine soul. There are mermen.
Yes, yes.
And what I have found is as I have started to become more authentic about my soul and my soul origins and who I believe myself to be, I mean, there are women who understand and know that they are incarnated mer people.
Yes.
On Hawaii, there's lots of women who identify with that, and you know, they own it as the truth of their essence, as much a part of them as their human self is. So, you know, a little bit of fantasy is okay. It's a beautiful thing to know and recognize yourself as a multidimensional being and be able to access that other part of you to enhance your human experience.
Yes.
And what I've also remembered about my merescence is that my first incarnation as a human, I did not come through a human vessel. I did not come through a pregnancy. I came straight up out of the ocean. I wanted to be human so badly that I came straight up out of the ocean, left my family. My sacrifice, or the trade-off, was my very long hair. I had very long hair down below my feet, and I could never figure out in this life why my hair wouldn't grow past, you know, mid back. I was like, why? Where is my very long hair?
Oh,
Until I remembered that my family knew that I had left because they saw my hair, my very long hair, float down to the bottom of the ocean, and they knew that I had gone. I came in human form because I love people. My love for humanity and my love for coming and being with people drew me out of the water for it's been many eons of, quote, time now, because how do you really measure time when there is no time? But I do know that I have been separated from my mer family for a very long time to be here on this planet and teach about the wisdom and the philosophy of Atlantis. And we'll talk a little bit more about why I'm doing that. My first incarnations, I was crippled. I didn't have working legs. And so that was the other trade-off of learning to become human, was that I didn't get to walk for a while. And in this life, it's kind of interesting. I have very strong lower body. I'm a runner. I'm a yogi. I seem to have reclaimed my, you know, the full power in my body. I have a very healthy body, but part of that sacrifice was coming into a body for several incarnations that was not so healthy, until I could be here enough to lose, or I don't know if lose is the right word, but kind of like release that imprint of having a mertail for strength. Yeah. And instead having human legs.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, that kind of goes into that topic of past lives and how they influence us. And a lot of people think of just the negative aspects. They think, oh, well, do I have this fear, or do I have this limitation based on that? But yes, there can be that, but we can also have strengths that come from our past life. And it feels to me like you've stepped into yours.
Well, you know, and as a past life regressionist, when people want to reunite and to claim the gifts that they carry, and these, you know, these very powerful beings that we are in other realms doing pretty amazing things, when we remember that and call that forward and ask that aspect of ourselves to merge the very greatest gifts, services, knowledge, wisdom that they carry, and merge that into this essence, it's life-changing.
Yes,
and this is how so many of us remember and reclaim our spiritual gifts and our life purpose, because that has come in from some other realm and been re-gifted in this lifetime.
Yeah. Very, very cool. I'm thinking of a client. I do past life readings, I guess would be a way, but usually the client resonates with it. It's not like fully, sometimes they'll go into a memory, or it'll confirm a memory, but it's more me tapping into their past lives. And this one woman, I went into 6 of hers, and 3 of them, she had been a woman who I started to notice had died before the age of 30. And the other had been a male 3 incarnations where he didn't have personal power. He was a servant or a slave, or, so his power was taken. In one case, he was actually, turned into a eunuch because of his boss's fear that he would impregnate or violate his wife. And of course, it wasn't in his mind. So I asked her, I said, are you like afraid that you're going to die before 30? Because it was hitting me that she had this fear. And she said, yeah, how did you know? And I'm thinking, well, duh, because it happened, and then, and in that process of working with her, she was able to recognize the strengths that she had in those lives. The fact that she had been a Celtic huntress, and that she had been, that she had the wisdom, was the observer, even though she didn't have the material powers or authority. She had spiritual wisdom. And I'm sure that this happens in the past life regressions that you do with people.
Well, it does, because when you get people to go to their own higher self and obtain their own memories, and then remember the trauma, remember if there is trauma, remember the good, remember all of it in these different scenarios in their lifetime, and then heal themselves. It's literally yourself healing yourself, or yourself bringing you from your higher self whatever it is you need to learn from that lifetime.
Yes.
And so when people are allowed to trust themselves and to go into the trance and call back their own life and memories and information, and their aspects are working together, because I really believe when people come to see me for regression, they have another aspect of themselves, or maybe multiple aspects of themselves, going, hey, you live in a realm, Ameera, she can come fix all of us. Go see her and let's take care of all this, because really what we're doing in this incarnation is so many of us are completing and wrapping up karma.
Yes.
We are moving from a karma-based life into a dharma-based life.
Oh, I like that.
We are no
that's
longer
very nice. Yeah.
bound to our karma, because we have people like mediums, shamans, past life regressionists, folks around us who know how to help us to tap into those other aspects that haven't finished business, or that are doing things in other realms that are affecting us in this realm, or are needing to be healed or released or enhanced in this realm. And of course, so we know Earth is one of the best training grounds for spiritual evolution that there is. So we get these supersized lessons, many of us, in this incarnation, because we are completing and we're ready to be done. And every time we heal another aspect of ourselves in another realm, that ray of light, what Metatron has told me, Archangel Metatron, is that stream of light from the Oversoul actually gets to go back up to the Oversoul.
Yes.
It gets to return. And so the different rays of light or incarnations that are in existence, including this one, become stronger and brighter.
Yes.
And that is what's called spiritual evolution and ascension.
Yeah, I do. And I do think of the Earth as sort of a compressed, sort of a zip drive of energy. And because of that, I know that there are lessons and mysteries in the physical realm that people in spirit are curious about. And that those of us that have come in, we're pretty badass for us to be even in the physical realm.
Hey, if you're on the planet right now, you're a spiritual badass, and that's all there is to it.
Absolutely. Well, we are coming up on the bottom of our hour, and we will be back with Ameera Beth to talk more about her memories of Atlantis. Talk to you soon. Thank you, Ameera.
Thanks, Tracy.
Now, back to our show, from a medium's perspective, with host, Reverend Tracey Lockwood.
Welcome back. If you missed the first half of the show, we're talking with Ameera Beth. If you are interested in learning how to develop your abilities, I offer private psychic mediumship tutoring or a private reading if you would be interested in that. And you can find that and more information on my website, which is mediumtraceylockwood.com. tracylockwood.com. I'm also on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc. I do want to mention that we have a storm going on. I'm hoping that our electricity and everything stays intact. And welcome back, Ameera, Beth.
Thank you.
Just before the break, we were kind of talking about the trend of mermaidism. Could you just encapsulate sort of the concept as to why you think mer energy and people's desires to be mermaids or to swim like a mermaid or think about mermaids? Why do you think that's back here now at this time?
Tracy, we live on a water planet. Our planet is 70% water. Our bodies are 70% water. Water holds memory. Water has always been here, the same water that is in our oceans today because of, precipitation and the clouds or the sun drawing the moisture up and then dispensing it back to the earth. That water has been here from the very beginning or the inception of this planet. So when we talk about being connected to the universe, about, all being one, or about fully being connected to source energy, water, I believe, is that primary conduit to cosmic knowledge and wisdom.
So it's basically paralleling the psychic opening, spiritual opening of people.
Well, in that, and the mer beings are the holders of the element of water. And we have always been with the planet as well. So the mer beings hold that consciousness in their essence and in their, in their, that knowledge in their essence. And so the influx of women and men, of people realizing or being connected to mer beings is not only about them remembering potentially that they are a mer being, but connecting to that cosmic consciousness and connecting to that cosmic wisdom that really runs through all of us because we're mostly water.
Okay.
And not only that, mermaids are nice to look at, right?
Right.
Who doesn't want to look at a mermaid? Who doesn't want to go play like a dolphin or like a mermaid? And so much of our existence is based around, going to work or going to school and working very hard and having to take life very seriously. When you become like a dolphin or a mermaid, or when you take on that embodiment, what you really embody is joy.
Yes.
And who doesn't need more joy in their life? I think we all do.
Yes. Yeah. I think living joyously is the expression of love. I think so, definitely. So in your process of reconnection to your full or part more one other aspect of your identity, because I'm sure it doesn't stop there. Tell us, do you have some memories of Atlantis and of that?
I have lots of memories. Some of the memories have come from doing past life regressions. My first memories started coming from past life regressions. And then as I learned to kind of trance myself, I would go in and I would bring back memories of being a mer being who would come up out of the water. My job was to come up out of the water. Ameera means princess. I am of royal descent in Atlantis, and my job was to come out of the water about 12 hours a day or so and shapeshift into a human. So I would literally come up. There was a special portal that I could come up from the waves and come up into, because remember, you're talking about coming from a vibration and a frequency that is not the same.
Yes,
right? So there was a special portal that, and me and some of the others who did this would come up, and we would grow our legs, or we would transform and shapeshift. And I would have these very long, thin feet, very strange looking feet. We would grow our legs and we would come up onto the land and go to the temple. And that's where I primarily did my teaching and my healing practice and my devotion to helping the Atlanteans and helping Atlantis, my devotion to humanity. So Atlantis was an experiment. It was an experiment by the High Council to see if beings could come down and live in a third dimensional body on a third dimensional planet and still retain their fifth dimensional consciousness. their connection to spirit. So if you remember, you know anything about dimensions, when we have a body that's in the fifth dimension, it's not physical like the physical reality we know today. It's not 3D. 3D is the five senses, primarily. These great beings who are very highly evolved volunteered to come find out if they could come to a very physically pleasing environment, touch, taste, see, smell, lovemaking, material goods, but still retain their fifth dimensional connection and consciousness to God.
I think that's our challenge too.
Well, we are on the same spiral of Atlantis, and the mer beings, because we were of our own dimension and frequency. Our job was to help the Atlanteans energetically and through our knowledge and wisdom and connection to spirit to retain that. We did that through energy work and energy healing, through color therapies. We actually have 13 major chakras in the human auric field. So part of my job was to do energetic clearing and conditioning on the auric field, on the 13 chakras, teach them ceremony, teach them how to hold ceremony on the land, because when we work with nature, when we work with the elements, when we work with the cycles of time, that keeps us connected to what is natural, keeps us in balance. When we celebrate the moon cycles, the full, the new, everything in between, when we celebrate the sunrises and the sunsets, and we are in constant reverence of nature, God is nature in a panentheistic way, God is all, then it becomes very easy for us to keep our vibrations high, keep our vibrations clear. And so because the Atlanteans, those who became the Atlanteans, had never had that experience before of having to do that, they were just connected and they weren't surrounded by all these, physical temptations and things. And because all Atlanteans were created equal, they were thought to be equal. Mm-hmm. There was no poverty, there were no tiered societies, there was no middle class. Everybody was supported, cared for. Everybody had their purpose, their job on Atlantis, and all beings were equal and equally cared for. There was no hierarchy. Even those, quote, in charge were not actually a hierarchy. Somebody just had to oversee, plan, make decisions, and just be certain that the community was laid out in architecture. The workload was, distributed, but there was actually no hierarchy of us being better or having more than you. Everybody lived pretty much the same. Everybody had their individual purpose for Atlantis. So the Mer people helped to maintain that balance. They helped to maintain that structure by teaching and helping the Atlanteans how to hold sacred ceremony, how to stay in tune with nature, in tune with one another, and keep that very delicate spiritual and energetic balance happening. And so that was a big portion of my job.
What other memories do you have of Atlantis? What
do you want to know? Because I can tell you.
Well, I was thinking, you said that you saw the city and the bubble and being able to come in and some temples and stuff, but are there?
Oh, that was Merlantis. And I'll speak to that really quick. When I would swim back down, when I would go, Merlantis was its own frequency. I had a special crystal what was on me, part of me, that would lead me back to Atlantis. So the bubble wasn't actually a bubble. It was an energetic bubble so that nobody else but those who were meant to enter and exit could find it.
Okay, and so you're differentiating Merlantis as being under the water and Atlantis as being above ground.
Correct. And so I split my time most of the time traveling between worlds in order to help the Atlanteans because we love them. Mm-hmm. Simply because we love them and we wanted to see this great experiment succeed because what it would do for the evolution of all beings. Atlantis rose and fall five times. It is my memory. 5 different incarnations of Atlantis coming into fruition. And then because the beings would lose their spiritual connection, because they would forget that we were all created equal, because ego would creep in, then nature would take care of. Nature would bring it back into balance. The experiment would be over. Mm-hmm. Technology was abused. Ego came in. Those feeling that they were more entitled Then others, eventually that crept into the consciousness, a little bit like what's happening right now.
Yep.
So we are literally on that same spiral of the last incarnation of Atlantis, where, where the devastation and the darkness and the dark element based on ego and power took down or took control of the consciousness and of the purity of Atlantis. Part of what I am here to preserve.
Yes.
And again, this is why there is so much mermaid iconography around us, because mermaids hold that vibration. And so many incarnate mer beings are here on this planet to hold and anchor that very pure vibration of Merlantis that was not affected because we were not officially part of Atlantis. We are an asset. We're a sister community.
You offer retreats.
I hold personal healing retreats and couples retreats, and I marry people on the island. So if you were coming to one of my group retreats, merjourneys.com, you can find the information there. This one's called The Sea is Calling Me.
Oh.
So it is going to revolve around being on bodies of water, not only the ocean, but being on, there's a beautiful Wailua River on Kauai that we'll do some activities on. And there is, there are waterfalls, abundance of waterfalls we can hike into and hold healing ceremonies for ourselves and really just be on this very sacred motherland, the Aina, Kauai, that has so much, mana. And so just being on Kauai herself will bring healing to you when you add intention and when you add community. And when you stand in ceremony and sacredness of these locations on Kauai, it is life-changing.
That's really beautiful, and how nice to have your interface with the land and interpretations. And, sometimes it isn't so much the information, it's, that we think of it as being educated about something, but sometimes it's the energetic introduction, the vibrational introduction that is offered, and I'm sure that that's part of what you're doing there.
Well, and Kauai is Lemuria. It is the heart of the Lemurian civilization, the really one of the last land masses that were true Lemuria. Lemuria was our origin, so Lemuria was our beginning. Lemuria preceded Atlantis. Atlantis was the masculine, Lemuria was the feminine.
Oh, interesting. Water and land. Very nice. Yes.
So you think about how we are here to balance our masculine and feminine in this life, right? That's one of those jobs we have. Atlantis and Lemuria at one point were coexisted and went to war to each other.
Okay, I am terribly sorry, but we are done. Hours over. I know, right? Thank you, listeners, for joining us today. Thank you, Ameera.
Thank you, Tracey. Aloha.
Aloha. We'll see you guys next week for another episode of From a Medium's Perspective.